Hello, welcome back to my channel. I hope y'all are having a much better day than I am. I am very excited to be starting off this video after I lost about half of the clips for this video. I am going to be revisiting some of my DNFs. Often DNF books because I don't like them, right? But every once in a while, there are books that I decide to put on pause or to put on DNF shelf because it's just not the right time for that book. And that doesn't mean the book's bad or that I'm not gonna like the book if I continued on with it, but it's just not the right time for the book. But sometimes I feel like those books deserve to be revisited. I feel like sometimes you need to pick the books up off the DNF shelf and give them a second shot, just like I'm giving this video a second shot again after my SD card corrupted and lost half the clips. So that's what we're gonna do in this video here today. I'm going to revisit some of my DNFs and see if I should have left them where they lay or if it was a good idea to pick them up. I'm happy to report that this first book I am glad that I picked up, and I had to give you a little synopsis about this book, tell you why I liked it, tell you why this was a great book to start with. Just Like Magic by Sarah Hogle is a book that I initially picked up because I was told by my patrons that I would like this book. I love Sarah Hogle, I think she's super fun, and this is a very quirky Christmas romance. When I first picked it up last year, I don't know what it was, if I was just in my Bah Humbug era or what, but I just wasn't in the mood for this. I tried both the physical copy, I tried the audiobook copy, and nothing was really striking my fancy. So I was like, you know what, maybe I'll just try this another time or just DNF it, it's okay. It was okay to DNF it during Chanmas last year. So this year I decided I'm gonna give it the old college try and try it out again. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I listened to this last night. I finished this last night, and I wish you could have seen my reaction go from this is okay to this is actually really fucking great. So I give this book 4 stars. It's about our main character Betty, who at the beginning of the book is very jaded and is very superficial, shall we say. She kind of reminds you of early Piper in It Happened One Summer. Character who you kind of want to root for, but you're also kind of rolling your eyes at. She has millions of Instagram followers, and her grandma is super famous, but her parents were trying to keep their lives very normal and just have a very normal upbringing. But I think the mom is a television star for the Food Network or something, so they're not totally normal, right? Her 2 sisters are kind of famous in their own right. Her brother is a screenwriter and or producer director. Betty, as this Instagram influencer who has had some failed business ventures, feels like she doesn't quite measure up to the rest of her family, and she is bankrupt at this point, basically super poor, and is kind of squatting at this dead woman's house just trying to make it by until Christmas. And she's worried about Christmas because she doesn't have nice gifts to bring her family and all these things. So she gets really drunk one night and is kind of lamenting her fortunes when she accidentally spills wine on a record player playing All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey, and this summons the Christmas spirit, Hall E. Day. He basically transforms Betty from this very vapid, self-absorbed person into someone that cares about others, cares about Christmas, cares about joy, and it is so fucking delightful. I was really unsure about this book at the beginning, and again, I wish I had that clip so you could see how hesitant I was about this book. I enjoyed references. There's a lot of media references in this book, and kind of the quirkiness of this book. I really liked that, but I wasn't really sure how I felt about this idea of a sexualized Buddy the Elf character. It just doesn't really feel, I don't want to say appropriate, but it just didn't really feel sexy to me until I got to that 50% mark and there was this moment, this spark between the 2 of them. And I was like, maybe I like him. This book really did it for me. It's not very sexy. There's no sex on page with this book, so if that's something that you're really looking for, you're not really gonna find it in this book. But I really enjoyed the romantic components of this, and how this book also really focuses on the Christmas magic. I feel a lot of books are set during Christmas and it's really romance centric and awesome, but there's not that transformative aspect. I feel Christmas is all about transforming. If I'm reading a Christmas book, I want this vapid person to turn into someone who has purpose and who is having a good time and is now a contributing member of society who's got a good heart, and that's what this book is. And maybe that's not what you're looking for in a Christmas book, but for me, I liked that aspect of the story, and it mixed with this kind of quirky, weird, off-the-wall thing I thought was personally really sweet. So I really liked this book. I'm glad that I picked this back up again. 4 stars for this one, and I just feel if you're looking for a Christmas book, this is a good one. It makes me want to read more Christmas books, that I have more books to recommend you next year, because I feel this would be on a holiday romance recommendation list for me. So overall, a good choice. Let's talk about something that maybe wasn't a good choice, okay? And then we can mosey on down to talk about something else that maybe also wasn't a good choice. Anyway, The Boyfriend Bargain by Ilse Madden Mills. I was so excited about this one. I was really excited to pick it back up because I've had good luck with Ilse's books in the past. One of my favorite books, Dear Ava, by her is so romantic and so charming, and I really wanted this one to be too. This one's set in college. It's about our 2 main characters, Sugar and Zach. Sugar's from Southern Alabama, and her goal is to get into Vanderbilt Law School, right? Her parents have this sort of I don't want to say unconventional relationship dynamic, but it's one that I see often in books where the mom is really beautiful and she gets swept away by this guy who's kind of a dick, and he has a whole family back home that's really sophisticated and the mom's not, and she gets left behind but secretly pines for this man his whole life or her whole life or whatever. Anyway, Sugar's mom's dead, and she's trying to get into Vanderbilt to prove to her family that abandoned her, basically her dad, and his dad's probably other family, that she is worthy, she's smart, she shouldn't be abandoned or something like that. I only got 30% in, but I'm assuming that's where it's leading, right? The only bad thing is that Sugar has been waitlisted for Vanderbilt, so she's kind of looking to do anything to get in, right? Again, to prove this point, rather than like, I don't know, pursuing dreams of her own that she actually wants. Who knows if she wants to be a fucking attorney? Unless the help of Zach, because Zach is going to play for the Nashville Predators next year, and the dean of the school that Miss Sugar wants to go to likes the Nashville Predators, and so she's like, if he pretends to be my boyfriend, maybe I'll get into this school. And it's like, that's a little fucking harebrained, but okay, go off, queen. My issue with this book is that there is a hookup at the beginning of the book, and y'all know how I feel about hookups. I am not into it. Call me a Christian woman. I'm not. Don't actually call me that, but I don't really like hookups at the beginning of books. I think it breaks tension. I think it makes things less exciting, and it really gets rid of any tension that could possibly be built between two characters. I say that there are exceptions for sure, but oftentimes that's the case, and in this book it definitely was the case. So you have these characters hook up at a party before Sugar's even able to tell Zach what she needs from him. They have sex. I was like, all right, where's this leading? So they have sex, and then it's not until like way later on in the book, like 30% in, like right at the 30% mark, where she asks him like, hey, will you be my fake boyfriend? And he's like, yeah, because I liked that kitty cat so much and I need more kitty cat from you. It's sugary sweet, you know what I mean? Pixie stick. I think the plotting and the pacing of this book is really the downfall, and it's interesting. I stopped this at 30%, and the first time I tried to read it, I stopped it at 36%. So it's like obviously an issue with the plotting and the pacing of the book. I wanted to like the characters. I liked that Zach in this book suffers from anxiety, and it feels very realistic, and I feel like we don't often see that when players have this immense pressure on them that they like crack. I mean, not that anxiety is cracking necessarily, but I feel like we don't often see that, right? As like a reaction, which is kind of weird since it feels like a normal reaction. But yeah, Zach's anxious. He also has someone in his life that was close to him that passed away that's causing him like panic attacks and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's like I wanted to root for these characters to be together. I feel like they both seemed well-rounded and interesting, and I think that's why I picked this book up in the first place, or why I felt compelled to read past the first chapter, was we saw this like panic attack that Zach has, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like I feel like this is going to be a really raw and real romance. And it's not that it wasn't necessarily, but I do feel like we were missing something. That something was stakes and tension, right? It's like, okay, I guess you sleeping together again at some point is going to be the tension here, but like, it's not exciting when you've already fucked. And like fake dating, I don't think is that compelling if you've already fucked. I decided to DNF this one again, and I feel confident in that decision. I feel good about it. Maybe I shouldn't feel so good about it, but I feel confident in that decision. So gonna leave it at that. I am gonna go downstairs though and get us a new delicious setting to where we can talk about 50% thought feelings on The Naked Fisherman. All right, friends. My day has been getting a little bit better. Bad shit happens and then good shit happens. I've never had this bad of luck with shipping. I've never had this bad of luck with my SD card. It's been quite the day. I can't say that The Naked Fisherman by Jillian has really been helping, but it is interesting, so I figured we could talk about it. This book is about our main character, Therese, aka Reese. And her life is pretty interesting. She has this backstory that I feel like should be playing more of a part in the story, but isn't. Basically, her dad passed away and her mom was in prison for possession of marijuana, so like nothing super major. I don't even think her mom had a substance abuse problem, but her mom was in prison for, I want to say like 5 years, and now she's out. Reese is 18. And now that Reese's dad has passed away, I think he's been dead for about 3 years or something like that. I think she was living with grandparents. She decided she'd take a gap year before going to college, and she's going to spend some time with her mom and kind of like reconnect with her. But right when she gets there, right when she gets to Colorado, her mom ends up leaving for 6 weeks to kind of like renew her skills, I guess, in cosmetology. I think her mom is a hairstylist, so Reese is basically stuck with a guy who lives upstairs. Her mom's like renting a basement from this guy. This guy's name is Fisher Man, so she calls him the Naked Fisherman because the first time she ever meets him, he's like half naked or whatever. He's 28, she's 18. She is attracted to him, he's attracted to her. They're trying to fight their feelings for each other, I suppose. She works for him as well. Like, I guess Reese's mom got her a job working for Fisher. This book has potential to be interesting. It's just not. The reason I DNF this book initially, by the way, is because the heroine of this book is homophobic. She's been taught that because of her religious upbringing. Her dad, when the mom was in prison, and I think maybe with help of the grandparents, kind of indoctrinated her and got her to be very religious, very Christian. And she went to a Catholic school. Actually, not Catholic. She went to a private Christian school. I think her mom is Catholic, but like, you know, but not like practicing or whatever. And Reese has, you know, religious and perhaps bigoted views, which I was thinking would like change throughout the story, and I'm not saying they haven't, but I really thought that like religion and religious deconstruction would be more of a thing in this book, and it's not. At the 50% mark, basically what the book is Reese trying to dry hump Fisher and get drunk and just be a fool. Like, she's just not very intelligent. She doesn't make very smart decisions. She kind of grapples with her like religion and her religious upbringing a touch in the story. Like, when she's in the throes of passion and like is deciding if she wants to go all the way, she's like, yeah, I definitely shouldn't. This is against my beliefs. But she doesn't ever really stop and like think about things. You know what I mean? And I understand getting caught up in the moment. I'm not expecting her to deconstruct as she's about to get fucked, but she never, like, after they have these encounters, really like sits there and thinks about her religion. And like, maybe that wouldn't make for a super exciting read for a lot of people, but I actually think that could be an interesting book. And maybe that's kind of the point of the book. Maybe I'm like not quite there yet, but I find it interesting that religion is such a big part of this book, and you're making, again, bigotry part of this character's religion and like personality, and yet you're not doing anything with it. It just seems a little bit strange. I also am really not loving the dynamic between Fisher and Reese. It just seems a little weird. I mean, here's the thing. We just had this discussion in my hot takes video where we talked about age gaps, and I don't really have an age gap problem in books. It doesn't bother me a ton. It depends how the age gap is handled. And this book, I feel like it's handled pretty poorly. Like, the heroine says that she feels like a teenager but also like an adult, and he's treating her kind of like a child, but he's also attracted to her. And so that feels weird. Like, that does not feel nice and good and right. It's not my favorite, to be honest. I am not hating it, and the sexual moments themselves are actually well written and not terrible. And it's like enough to keep me going because I like want to see where this goes. But I'm also like, I don't understand the hype. I feel like so many people hyped this book and said it was so amazing and like so romantic, and I'm just feeling to see that. Like, I don't really get it. It is very sexy and like smutty, but there's not a lot of relationship. There have been a couple of banter moments for sure between Fisher and Reese. I'm not trying to say that there's nothing there and that they have no reason to like want to interact with each other beyond sex, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like age gaps are interesting because I feel like oftentimes the author is trying to prove that like, oh, these two should be together even though they haven't this age gap, and yet a lot of the verbiage between the characters just furthers the point that they like shouldn't be together. But this is a book that I'm reading, and maybe I shouldn't have given this one a second chance, but my curiosity was really killing me, and I haven't heard anyone else talk about the fact that she said something homophobic at the beginning of the book, so like, I don't know, does that get resolved? I must know. Again, curiosity killing the old noggin. But I'm gonna finish this one tonight, and I'll probably let y'all know how it is tomorrow. Hopefully I like don't lose the clips for that, but you never know. You really never fucking know. Happy Wednesday. Today is a better day, although my skin is so much worse, so we're gonna put makeup on while I talk to you about The Naked Fisherman. Okay, this one, it didn't get better, I'll be honest with you. This book is so annoying because the characters know that they should not be together. They know that they should not be engaging in sexual activity together, and yet they keep doing it. I understand there's like this forbidden aspect to it, but I just don't really get it. Like, I don't get their attraction for each other. I don't get why they felt like they needed to hide this from people. I just don't get it. Other thing that I don't really get is that the homophobia does kind of get addressed in a sense. It's like, do I want to spoil this? I do. I'm gonna spoil this book, so if you were like really desperate to read it, I'm sorry. The heroine's mom is a lesbian, and she finds this out because she walks in on her mom engaging in sexual activity with her lover, and she also finds out that the reason that her mom went to prison in the first place was because she was growing marijuana actually for lesbian lover who had cancer, and she was like trying to make sure that her lesbian lover had medical marijuana access in a state that like didn't allow for medical marijuana. And I keep saying lesbian lover because she was married at the time, right? So you know, not exactly like, you know, just a girlfriend kind of thing. But everyone finds out about this, kind of gets the whole story from her mom, and she doesn't like necessarily say anything homophobic. She does like tell her grandparents about the situation, or like not even tell them explicitly, but asks them like, what do you think about same-sex relationships? And her grandparents are like, that's, you know, the devil's work or some shit like that. And our heroine just like doesn't know how she feels about it, but I think she eventually decides she doesn't care that her mom's a lesbian, but is mad her mom lied to her, whatever. The book kind of leaves off with her deciding she's going to go on a mission trip to Thailand. You know, she's not with the Naked Fisherman at this point because she doesn't want her mom to find out that she has been hooking up with this guy, even though her mom has been sneaking around and lying. I have the same exact complaints that I did yesterday with the fact that this book tries to have a different kind of main character and doesn't do anything with that. I'm sorry, but like, if you were going to have a character who has homophobic views, that needs to be questioned, that needs to be kind of turned on its head. And like, sure, I guess you could say subtly the heroine kind of makes decisions for herself, but like, not really. And I don't know, I'm hoping that like maybe in the next book she has a religious deconstruction, because it's a cliffhanger, it's a duet if that wasn't clear. But like, I'm not going to stick around for that, so I just had to read a book about a religious, seemingly homophobic character. So wasn't my favorite, obviously. I don't get this one. I don't understand the hype behind it. There's also just an insane amount of like repetition in this story too, which I've personally found frustrating as a reader. Like, I don't want to see these people say, oh, you know, my mom's coming back soon, we definitely need to stop this, and then like 5 seconds later they're like basically boning. Like, that's not fun. for me as a reader. Like I want there to be, well, they won't they, but I also want there to be development outside of that. Again, I just feel like I'm really over stories that are just about the romance, and that's crazy as someone who loves romance and like wants to read a romance novel, but I also want to see development on the part of the characters, and in this case it was necessary and it just didn't happen. So I don't even know what the fuck I would rate this. Like maybe 2 stars, maybe 1 star, I don't know. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever read, but it like definitely was not a fave, so probably gonna leave it like 2 stars, hoping that the next book doesn't suck. Let's read Pucking Around. Who's ready to get pucked up? I'm 50% into Pucking Around by Emily Rath, and this is the second time that I am attempting to read this book. I tried before, try as I might, physically to read this book. I was just not entranced, as the kids shall say. Here's the thing, why choose novels? I just don't have luck with them. I deeply want to. I deeply want to be that girl that's just like, I was gonna say goblin glizzies, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I want to be that person, and I just simply am not. I just think a little too hard about the logistics of it, you know? Polyamorous relationships, I get it. Everybody's kind of sharing, or people are like pursuing different things, but like how magical is this girl Snatch that she would attract 3 beautiful men? Is it misogynistic to say I just don't think that's gonna work? I don't know. Okay, let me talk about this book, okay? But our main character, Rachel, she is a physician who landed her dream like internship, I guess, at this I was gonna say rink. New hockey team in Jacksonville, because Jacksonville is just a place everybody wants to live. She's reunited with a guy that she hooked up with at her brother's wedding. Like, I don't think that guy was at her brother's wedding, but was like in the lobby of the hotel where the wedding took place. And she hooks up with him and they have a magical night of passion. And sure, I could have listened to that novella audiobook. Was I going to? No, because the audiobook for this book, it's like 24 hours long, and that's obscene. Anyway, Rachel reunites with this man. His name is Jake, and he has a monster cock. She also gets to meet the equipment management man, Caleb, who apparently is like golden and has a really sweet dog, but also gives like vampire demon vibes, as is evidenced by the sex that I just finished reading. And then we've got Mars, I believe his name is. He's the Finnish goalkeeper, is I guess trying to hide the fact that he's injured, and she's trying to help him because she's a doctor, right? Despite the HIPAA violations, this book is fine, okay? If you are willing to overlook all of the, I don't want to say bullshit, but if you're willing to overlook all of the unrealistic aspects of this book, it's fun, okay? It's a fun time. It's hot. I like seeing people have sex. Well, okay, I like reading about people having sex. I don't want to see people have sex. The sex scenes in this book are hot. So far, Mars has not joined in the fun, but I'm sure he will eventually. Mostly at this point, we're kind of just dealing with Caleb and Homegirl and Jake having fun. Good for what it is. I like that the sex is pretty gay as well, which is nice. I understand sexuality is complex, but I like that everybody is having a good time together and that the swords are crossing. I can't talk about this book seriously. I really can't. It's better the second time around, okay? I'm sort of invested. I want to see where things go. There's a scene where they like spit into each other's mouths, so, you know. It's a book. Well, all's well that happy ends well. I finished Pucking Around, and I will say this book actually pleasantly surprised me. I really thought this was going to end up being like a 2.5, 3-star read because it is egregiously long. There's no reason for this book to be this long. However, I feel like this book sort of took my complaints and fears with Why Choose Novels and sort of got me to rethink those things. And I think that's because this book is truly a polyamorous romance. It's not just 4 or 5 different men agreeing to fuck the same woman. And I liked that. I liked that there was a lot of communication about who was going to have contact with who, what they wanted their relationship to look like. Essentially, I think like the way that everything evolved is that the Finnish guy has his like own one-on-one relationship with the heroine, and then the other 2 guys have sort of like a relationship with each other and then also with the heroine. So it's cute. I actually really liked how this book ended. They go public with their relationship. Our heroine does get in trouble with her job for like violating HIPAA basically, which is, you know, good for that to actually have been addressed. I did appreciate that. Obviously she ends up keeping her job and everything is hunky-dory. They all just fuck like rabbits. Cum is everywhere. And that's fun, you know? They're gonna be a happy family, and it seems like most of the people in their life are accepting of their relationship, which is nice. I really don't have much to complain about, again, except for the length of this book. I know that a lot of these other books I have bitched about the length, but there is absolutely no reason for a romance, especially a smutty romance, to be for 700 pages long and to be a 24-hour audiobook. What in God's name? I'm sorry, that's just obscene. So this one's tough for me. I had a good time with it. I don't think that ultimately this is like the most me romance ever. I think if you're someone who likes a traditional romance and you want something that feels like very digestible, I don't know that this is going to be for you. If you want something that feels intensely smutty and you do like some good communication in your stories, maybe this will be for you. For me, I think I'm gonna give this a 3-star. It was fine. Nice count on Pepper to eat his wet food while I talk about books. Okay, this vlog has been such an interesting experience because I feel like the books that I expected to pick up and really enjoy, the books that I really put on pause rather than true DNF, are the ones that I just don't want to finish. I am actually going to be DNFing a second book for this video, which I guess shouldn't be shocking since this video is like, you know, trying my DNFs to see if I shouldn't have DNF'd them. Reputation by Adriana Locke, I was so excited for. I was so excited to pick it back up because I really love Adriana Locke's writing. I feel like she is an underrated romance author who really is great at plotting and pacing her books. Reputation is just not really working for me. It's about our two main characters, Coy, Bellamy, and I guess they have some sort of history that we don't know about. And I guess you don't find out about in really any of the books, but they're kind of estranged from each other. I think they were like kind of childhood best friends and lovers at the same time. They were like part of like a 4-person friend group, basically with Coy's little brother, her cousin Larissa, and then Larissa's best friend, who is Bellamy. So like the 4 of them are kind of a little foursome, a little friendship group. She's always been really close with the other brother, I guess. I can't remember his name. And she's still friends with him, but not friends with Coy because I guess he like abandoned her after they had sex one time or something like that. I mean, she's like rightfully upset, I suppose, but I think my problem is that like we don't really have enough context for why she is so upset. Yeah, it's obviously really shitty to be abandoned after you have sex with someone, but it just feels like her anger is not totally justified. And it feels like there's a lot of like indignation that I don't think is justified. I feel like there needs to be a backup to the banter, right? Like I feel like we could have been given a quick like one-liner or even like a quick info dump at the beginning about like why these two aren't together anymore. He, by the way, is this like famous country music star who is kind of laying low after having a breakup with, I guess, an actress, and it was like a PR relationship, but she thought it was more than that, and so she has been like lighting him up in the tabloids. He's trying to kind of keep a low profile, and then he's also tutoring or like helping give piano lessons to Bellamy's kid she's nannying. So that's like how they've kind of gotten back together. I think the problem again is that like the anger doesn't really feel that justified to me, and then also the reason bringing these two together is just like him, I guess, like say tutoring. Why do I keep wanting to say tutor? Teaching this kid. Just like I'm just not that drawn in. I'm not that intrigued. I'm like I got 30% into the book, but I feel like it's kind of a slog to get through, and that's like not what you want when you're reading a romance. Like you don't want to feel bored, and it's frustrating because I see hallmarks of my own writing in this writing, and I always feel like when I'm reading a story and the writing reminds me of my own or like something I would do, I'm normally like, oh, I'm gonna keep reading this, like I love this. But in this case, I don't know, I'm just not loving it. It's probably a case of it's me, it's not the book, but that's not gonna like stop me from reading more from this author in the future. I just feel pretty like decent about my DNF of this book. But again, it just like had me curious about more Adriana Locke books. I feel like every time I read one of her books, I'm like, damn, I got more from this author. Like she definitely knows how to write. Maybe this one just like wasn't perfect for me. So I hope y'all have enjoyed this video. I hope that it was interesting. I honestly had a good time with this because I think it's interesting to see what books DNF'd for different reasons. I think what I'm finding is that like if I put something on pause, if something is just like not holding my attention enough to finish it, I should probably just leave it there. Like I knew that with the other DNFs, the ones that like felt more permanent, you know what I mean? Like The Naked Fisherman, I feel like I probably could have just like let that one lie. But when it comes to things that are just like not holding my attention, they're not holding my attention for a reason usually. Like it's not normally just it's the wrong time kind of thing. I mean, I guess with the exception of just like magic, but yeah, most of the time I think I should just let DNFs be DNFs and not pick them up again. So learned important lessons. I hope this is entertaining in some way. I love y'all so much, and I will see you tomorrow.